Okay, very good. Now, before we start reading the story of Esau and Jacob, there is one thing which we have to notice, that Isaac is almost not present. We have huge story, long story about Abraham. It's about from chapter 12 to 22. We have quite long story about Jacob. We will see that. But Isaac, who is in between, he is almost not mentioned. Actually, we almost don't have any, except Akedah, we don't have any scene where Isaac directly appeared. We have picking up the wife for Isaac, and that's done by the servant. And I don't know why is that, but Bible doesn't pay him so much attention. My guess, if I would ever have to guess that, if I am on exam giving the answer, I would guess that it's because God doesn't do any change in his life. He is already, before his birth, his name is God. The angel says his name will be Isaac. There is no any process of conversion he has to go for adjusting his life to the will of God. So he's not interested in the Bible. Abraham had to go from somebody who believed in many gods to somebody who is absolutely submitted to the will of God. We will see Jacob, who is not only having the change of name from Jacob to Israel. Jacob means the one who grabs, one who is always trying to grab something from somebody. To Israel, one who is strong with God. And so we see huge change in Jacob. But in Isaac, there is no any change. So I guess if there is any reason why Isaac is just skimmed over, it is not interesting for the Bible, because God, he works with God. God doesn't have to do any work on him. I don't know if that's a good way to say it. Make sense for?
Yeah.
Okay. So he is almost glossed over. We jump in the story of Esau and Jacob. In that story that begins in end of chapter 25, starting from verse 19, and it's what is most important as we read this story is to get the characters of Esau and Jacob. As we read it, we'll see that Esau is the character we would like more, especially Michiganders. Esau is a real man. He's hunting, he's fishing, he is constantly out on the lake or river, wherever. He's a real man. He's hairy, he's macho. He is something what Michiganders would appreciate.
You have a very vivid picture of us. Well, I'll tell you what, there you go. I'm not a man, and I'm a hunter and a fisherman, so there you go.
Yeah, but you are not hairy.
I can tell. I can definitely tell.
But Jacob, on the contrary, he is mama's boy. He likes to stay inside and cook. Michiganders would not appreciate it. And I think that's exactly the point of the story. We will see many times the characters that God chooses to work with them are actually most of the time most unlikely characters. The characters we would not choose. God goes for, we can say in one sense, for underdog. There will be so many scenes of younger brother who will be chosen. And there is later on we will see the sons of Moses, Manasseh and Ephraim. The Manasseh will supersede older brother Ephraim. Then we will see Abel, the younger one, was also favored over Cain. Also Moses is the younger brother of Aaron. he is chosen. Then in Jacob's family, the most favorite son by God is Joseph, who is not absolutely youngest. There was after him Benjamin, but still he was almost the youngest. Judah, the next one who will be prominent, is the youngest of 4 of his mother, and so on. So there is this. Also, if we go to further after from Torah, there is a Saul. When prophet comes to King Saul, actually he was then not king. He was just a guy chasing the donkey, and he says, "I am the youngest of my brothers," or I should have stopped before Saul in Book of Judges, where angel comes to Gideon and says, "You will save your people," and Gideon says, "I'm the youngest from my family, from the smallest tribe, smallest clan from smallest tribe." David is also the youngest of his brothers. So we see kind of constant theme that God constantly chooses the youngest, the underdog. Also barren women. That's not something what is appreciated in Israel. And why is that? What do you think?
Maybe they didn't feel self-sufficient. Maybe they needed God.
Well, that's one for sure. That's a reason why Jacob is. We'll see probably that with Jacob. That's one of the reasons why he is chosen, because he becomes strong with God. You understand? His strength is not anymore in what he can do. That's constant theme in the Bible, that if somebody wants to cling to God, he has to recognize his own weakness. So the ones who are unappreciated by man much easier recognize their own weakness. Somebody who is like Esau, who feels very much self-sufficient, he doesn't see so much need for God. Make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know if that I should connect even to that line what Jesus Christ says in the gospel. He says the thieves and prostitutes will enter the kingdom of heaven before you. It is basically the same theme, that the thieves and prostitutes have not just seen by their intellect, they have experienced that their action, their life never leads to happiness. And they see the need to be transformed. And they are ready to submit themselves to God to transform them if they come to the point that they desire change. The problem that Pharisees, they feel, I'm so good, I'm self-sufficient, everything what I do, God should be so pleased with me, I don't need to change anything. And actually nobody can be united with God without inner transformation. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I have to ask if it makes sense, otherwise
Yeah.
if nobody of you is asking the question, so let's start to read this story from 19 to 28.
This is the family history of Isaac, son of Abraham. Abraham had begotten Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel and Aramean of Paddan Aram, and the sister of Laban, the Aramean. Isaac entreated the Lord on behalf of his wife, since she was sterile. The Lord heard his entreaty, and Rebekah became pregnant. But the children in her womb jostled each other so much that she exclaimed, "If this is to be so, what good will it do me?" She went to consult the Lord, and he answered her, "Two nations are in your womb. Two peoples are quarreling while still within you. But one shall surpass the other, and the older shall serve the younger." When the time of her delivery came, there were twins in her womb. The first to emerge was reddish, and his whole body was like a hairy mantle. So they named him Esau. His brother came out next, gripping Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. As the boys grew up, Esau became the skillful hunter, a man who lived in the open, whereas Jacob was a simple man who kept to his tents. Isaac preferred Esau because he was fond of game, but Rebekah preferred Jacob.
I told you Jacob was Mama's boy. Now about the names a little bit. Esau is named hairy, and that's pronounced in Esau. The word echoes the word seir, hairy. Jacob. In verse that's not the name. In verse 11, let's read verse 11. In chapter 27, where they discuss, let's see that verse 11. I obviously have jumped into that too early, but
I can read it. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Jacob said to his mother Rebekah, "Look, my brother Esau is hairy, while I am smooth-skinned."
The word smooth, it's halak. And this word has three meanings in Hebrew. It means smooth, like used here, translated here, and it fits to English phrase also, smooth talking. You understand? Somebody who can sell the refrigerators to Eskimos.
Yeah.
So Jacob was like that. He was very sly. So Jacob was smooth-skinned, smooth-talking, but also the word halak, which means smooth, it can refer to Mount Halak. Now let me show you Mount Halak. You see Mount Halak? This is the map of Promised Land here. Here you see the Lake of Galilee, River Jordan, Dead Sea. And here is Mount Halak. You see it?
Yeah.
You see what is across Mount Halak is Mount Seir. So the Seir, we said it means hairy, but also refers to Mount Seir. It's spelled a bit differently, but it sounds different. And this is the land when descendants of Esau will live, around that Mount Seir. So it's a very skillful putting together geographical reference where these nations are living, and that they are opposite always in fight, and also putting their characteristics of these persons in one sentence. Isn't this beautiful? At least I found it beautiful.
Yeah.
You see how skillful they are. Let's read from verse 29. Just to the end of that chapter. Let's see then.
Once when Jacob was cooking a stew, I don't know how to write, no, Esau, I used to say, but
Esau.
Esau came in from the open famished. He said to Jacob, "Let me gulp down some of that red stuff. I'm starving." That is why he was called Edom. But Jacob replied, "First, give me your birthright in exchange for it." "Look," said Esau, "I'm on the point of dying. What good would my birthright do me?" But Jacob insisted, "Swear to me first." So he sold Jacob his birthright under oath. Jacob then gave him some bread and the lentil stew. And Esau ate, drank, got up, and went his way. Esau cared little for his birthright.
What we see here, all this passage which we just read, is actually most reason for that passage is given in the last sentence. Esau cared little about his birthright. People of Israel, for them, this is the most important thing. They are chosen nation. They are born, the people of Israel, they are born into the nation which is chosen by God. If you don't care for this gift that God has given you to be chosen by God, then you don't care for the gifts of God. We have to see how enormous is gift to be firstborn. Let's, for example, take Jacob. He had 12 sons. If he has big piece of land and he divides this land to 12 sons, each one gets 1/12. And then if each one of them has, I don't know, 10 sons or 12 sons, whatever, after 2-3 generations, nobody has enough land to grow tomato, and much less to have the herd of sheep or something. Herd of sheep or flock, probably flock of sheep. Okay.
Flock of sheep.
Yeah. Because of that to keep property of the family together, there was a rule that the firstborn would receive everything, all the land, and everybody else, all other sons, would receive just some sustenance, not really any substantial inheritance. What is most important to see in this passage of Esau, that he didn't care that he was firstborn. He didn't see that as a gift, which he has to defend at any rate. Very important gift that God has given him. And he says, what is good for me that I am firstborn if I may die of hunger? Come on. He may wait 1 hour and prepare some food for himself, sandwich, or I don't know, take some chips, whatever they had at the time. For sure, mother had something in some milk or somewhere, and he will not die of hunger. But that represents, I think, the book of Hebrew will show him as somebody who is just caring for his stomach, to satisfy his immediate needs, not looking further than his nose. Okay, let's see that in book of Hebrews, chapter 12, start from verse 14. Who will read it for me? From verse 14 to 17.
Seek peace with all people, and the holiness without which no one can ever see the Lord. Be careful that no one is deprived of the grace of God, and that no root of bitterness should begin to grow and make trouble. This can poison a large number. And be careful that there is no immoral person or anyone worldly minded like Esau, who sold his birthright for one single meal. As you know, when he wanted to obtain the blessing afterwards, he was rejected, and though he pleaded for it with tears, he could find no way of reversing the decision.
Because of that, he was looking here to get these lentils, and that was, according to somewhere in the Bible, says the reddish stuff. Esau's name will be changed to Edom, which means red. And this word will be later on kind of important in the Bible, especially prophets will use the word Edom for descendants of Esau. Later on in some prophecies, it will even be referred as all the enemies of Israel. So let's continue with chapter 26. Here, Isaac in chapter 26 will do the same thing. I probably should study this thing more to see where it came from. But basically, again, with King Abimelech, happens the same thing as with Isaac. He goes there. I don't know if we need to read that. I don't have much more to say about that passage. He goes to King Abimelech and he says that his wife is his sister. Okay, she's kind of cousin. So in Hebrew, that might be used the word sister. But again, the same thing what his father did. But I found that very strange, and I didn't study why. From verse 7. Okay, let's just read it for fun.
When the people of the place asked him about his wife, he replied, "She is my sister," for he was afraid to say, "She is my wife," thinking the people of the place will kill me because of Rebekah, since she is beautiful. When he had been there some time, Abimelech, the Philistine king, happened to look out of the window and saw Isaac fondling his wife Rebekah. Abimelech summons Isaac and said to him, Surely she must be your wife. How could you have said she is my sister? Isaac replied, because I thought I might be killed on her account. Abimelech said, what a thing to do to us. One of the people might easily have slept with your wife. We should have incurred guilt, thanks to you. Then Abimelech issued this order to all the people. Whoever touches this man or his wife will be put to death.
We'll see later on one literary device, and we'll see if that's the reason why that story was inserted here. I don't know if we are going to see it today. Let's go from verse 34 to see why Esau is not very pleasing to God, because he married the wives of the nations that were not approved wives. Let's go from verse 34.
When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon of Hivite. But they became a source of embitterment to Isaac and Rebekah.
Because they bring the foreign gods in their family.
Keep going.
Yes, now this is the main story which we need to follow. That Jacob obtained blessing by fraud. Let somebody read that. Yeah, you may.
When Isaac was so old that his eyesight had failed him, he called for his older son, Esau, and said to him, Son. Yes, father, he replied. Isaac then said, As you can see, I am so old that I may now die at any time. Take your gear, therefore, your quiver and bow, and go out into the country to hunt some game for me. With your catch, prepare an appetizing dish for me, such as I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my special blessing before I die. Rebekah had been listening while Isaac was speaking to his son, Esau. So when Esau went out into the country to hunt some game for his father, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, Listen, I overheard your father tell your brother Esau, Bring me some game, and with it prepare an appetizing dish for me to eat, that I may give you my blessing with the Lord's approval before I die. Now, son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go to the flock and get me 2 choice kids. With these, I will prepare an appetizing dish for your father, such as he likes. Then you bring it to your father to eat, that he may bless you before he dies. But my brother Esau is a hairy man, said Jacob to his mother Rebekah, and I am smooth-skinned. Suppose my father feels me, he will think I am making sport of him, and I shall bring on myself a curse instead of a blessing. His mother, however, replied, Let any curse against you, son, fall on me. Just do as I say. Go and get me the kids. So Jacob went and got them and brought them to his mother, and with them she prepared an appetizing dish, such as his father liked. Rebekah then took the best clothes of her older son, Esau, that she had in the house, and gave them to her younger son, Jacob, to wear. And with the skins of the kids, she covered up his hands and the hairless parts of his neck. Then she handed her son Jacob the appetizing dish and the bread she had prepared. Bringing them to his father, Jacob said, Father. Yes, replied Isaac. Which of my sons are you? Jacob answered his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I did as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your special blessing. But Isaac asked, How did you succeed so quickly, son? He answered, The Lord your God let things turn out well for me. Isaac then said to Jacob, Come closer, son, that I may feel you, to learn whether you really are my son, Esau, or not. So Jacob moved up closer to his father. When Isaac felt him, he said, Although the voice is Jacob, the hands are Esau. He failed to identify him because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So in the end, he gave him his blessing. Again, he asked him, "Are you really my son Esau?" "Certainly," he replied. Then Isaac said, "Serve me your game, son, that I may eat of it, and then give you my blessing." Jacob served it to him, and Isaac ate. He brought him wine, and he drank. Finally, his father Isaac said to him, "Come closer, son, and kiss me." As Jacob went up and kissed him, Isaac smelled the fragrance of his clothes. With that, he blessed him, saying, "Ah, the fragrance of my son is like the fragrance of the field that the Lord has blessed. May God give to you the dew of the heavens and the fertility of the earth, abundance of grain and wine. Let people serve you, and nations pay you homage. Be master of your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you." Jacob had scarcely left his father, just after Isaac had finished blessing him, when his brother Esau came back from his hunt. Then he too prepared an appetizing dish with his game, and bringing it to his father, he said, "Please, father, eat some of your son's game, that you may then give me your special blessing." "Who are you?" his father Isaac asked him. "I am Esau," he replied, "your firstborn son." With that, Isaac was seized with a fit of uncontrollable trembling. "Who was it then," he asked, "that hunted game and brought it to me? I finished eating just before you came in, and I blessed him. Now he must remain blessed." On hearing his father's words, Esau burst into loud, bitter sobbing. "Father, bless me too," he begged. When Isaac explained, "Your brother came here by a ruse and carried off your blessing," Esau exclaimed, "He has been well named Jacob. He has now supplanted me twice. First he took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing." Then he pleaded, "Haven't you saved a blessing for me?" Isaac replied, "I have already appointed him your master. I have assigned to him all his kinsmen as his slaves. Besides, I have enriched him with grain and wine. What then can I do for you, son?" But Esau urged his father, "Have you only that one blessing, father? Bless me too." Isaac, however, made no reply, and Esau wept aloud. Finally, Isaac spoke again and said to him, "Ah, far from fertile earth shall be your dwelling, far from the dew of the heavens above. By your sword you shall live, and your brother you shall serve. But when you become restive, you shall throw off his yoke from your neck." Esau bore Jacob a grudge because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "When the time of mourning for my father comes, I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah got news of what her older son Esau had in mind, she called her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Listen, your brother Esau intends to settle accounts with you by killing you. Therefore, my son, do what I tell you. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay with him a while until your brother's fury subsides, until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you did to him. Then I will send for you and bring you back. Must I lose both of you in a single day?"
It's a lot here. First of all, the words which I would underline, and I will not explain now why, just that you remember them, because later on, when we read other stories, we'll connect back through use of these words. And this is so go to the flock and bring me back 2 good kids, the small goats. And this will connect to other 2 stories. Also the garment, Esau's garment, and the skin of the goat. Again, just the goat is important. So this will be connecting pieces to other stories. We'll keep that just emphasize that, in Jewish mind, it's impossible to do something what is morally evil without being punished. We don't see it always as punishment of God, but as God teaching us the lesson. So we have a bit different mentality, but Bible is written in Jewish mind. So we'll see the punishment of Rebekah. Let's read verses 12 and 13 to see that she deserves something. Who will read verse 12 and 13?
Of 28?
Chapter 27. We go back and go details of that.
Jacob said to his mother Rebekah, "Look, my brother Esau is hairy, while I am smooth-skinned. If my father happens to touch me, he will see that I am cheating him, and I shall bring a curse down on myself instead of a blessing." But his mother replied, "On me be the curse, my son."
The words spoken like that in Jewish mind always will have the effect. Okay, you cannot say these words lightly. The words once pronounced all have the effect on are becoming action. They are becoming truthful. The word of God, for sure, always becomes true, but because we are sons of God, the words which we pronounce will have effect on our life. So what is the curse which comes on Rebekah? Here we see on the day of the end of that passage we read, she said, you will have to, he sends her son, her beloved son, Jacob, to Laban, to her brother or uncle. That kind of later changes, I think. Yeah, here is brother, there was uncle, I think. Anyway, doesn't matter.
That was her brother, right?
Yeah, it was her brother. So Jacob goes there, and Rebekah will never see her son. She will die before he comes back, okay? And there is another strange punishment given by I found it amusing. Let's read Genesis 35. We have seen till now the death of Abraham, his burial, that was there. We will see the death of Jacob later on, or other patriarchs. We hear about their death and burial. Let's read verses 6 to 8 in chapter 35, and then I will tell you why we read that.
When Jacob arrived at Luz in Canaan, that is Bethel, and all the people with him, he built an altar there and named the place El Bethel, since it was there that God had appeared to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Deborah, who had been Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried below Bethel under the oak tree, so they named it the Oak of Tears.
I guess we would need to read every single line till that point to see how strange is that line. What is strangeness here is that we get info about the burial of Deborah, the nurse of Rebekah, of whom we never heard before. She never was mentioned. Why now we get info that she was buried? You know why? Just to tell us, you see, Rebekah died and you never get info about her death. She's written out of the story. And the author doesn't want to tell us, we don't speak about Rebekah anymore because she misled her husband. She lied.
Rebekah, I mean, was such a beautiful story of her coming to Isaac, and then she has these two children, and it all comes down to birthrights, and the Lord sanctions this, evilness.
Well, it is, Isaac pronounces the blessing on Jacob, and words once pronounced, they cannot be undone. They are actionable words. Once, let's go back but let me finish the story of Rebekah's nurse, okay? So what is the problem of Rebekah? That she participates, she organized lying to her husband. You understand? She working against the covenant with her husband. That's what is her sin, okay? So here is not about the birthright or something. It's that she is trying to cheat her husband into doing her own will, not trying to speak with her husband or whatever would be other option. But simply she has idea it has to be done like that, and I will get it by cheating and whatever. And it's the problem of Rebecca. And the punishment is that she will not see her because she said that the curse come upon me. And yes.
Okay, back when Rebecca was pregnant with the 2 boys, didn't God tell her that the older would serve the younger?
Yes, and you see, that's of freedom and predestination. Is that predestined, or they were free to choose? I guess that's where your question is leading, correct?
No, I don't think so, because I think when the Bible gives in the Old Testament that God speaks to somebody, there's usually a reason, and I haven't seen the freedom thing coming through yet.
Well, they act in freedom to choose to betray each other, and it was free action of Esau to sell his birthright. He was not forced by God, but it was foretold by God. It was free action of Jacob, which on one sense almost had the right to do it, because he get the birthright in immoral way. Why was immoral? It's like now somebody selling the face mask for $200. I don't know how much they are selling them from. You understand? But selling the plate of lentils for the birthright is price gouging. You understand?
Okay, so then perhaps her sin then was in not trusting that God would bring it about in his way. She wanted to bring it about in her way.
Yes, that was and she didn't want to work with her husband, to speak with him, to try to arrange it, but she wanted to get it in any way possible. That's what is immoral. I have idea what I want, and I will get it by cheating, lying, and so on. You understand?
Well, it's like with us. God knows what we're going to do before we do it. He knows it all, and he knows, but he gives us the opportunity to make free choice. And Esau gave up his birthright. God knew he was going to choose that even before he did.
Exactly.
And so it really comes down to just like us today with sin and with selling masks for $200. God sees the greed and the selfishness and the self-centeredness of the human condition.
And again, I'm trying to balance the story. We are reading the story from Jewish mentality. So here is expressed kind of punishment on Rebecca. We would never say in this way that God punishes Rebecca. It is okay, teaches her lesson and her place in the story. You understand? She need to be humiliated because she put herself above her husband.
Right.
But it's not as a punishment what she deserves, but in Jewish mind, yes. But it is something what can help you you cannot enter the kingdom of God if you are not humble, if you put yourself above others. Let me just finish this with Deborah, the nurse of Rebecca. I found that so beautiful, subtle way of writing. We never heard about Deborah. She was never mentioned in any other case. And she was mentioned here that she was buried just for one reason, to tell us, look, we don't speak anymore about Rebecca. I see that as such beautiful literary device. I don't know how you say it. It's amazing. And you see, that's the reason why it's good sometimes to read the Bible whole. You cannot notice these details unless you read the whole story. If you come in the church on Mass, eventually you will hear almost whole Bible. But you cannot pick up this because you don't get at one point the whole story. And that we need occasionally to read, to get such details, to see that some part is put kind of like fly in the ointment, something what sticks out. But you can see that it sticks out only when you read the whole story. Make sense? On the other hand, I did mention on one occasion there are no villains in Bible story. Nobody is actually considered villain, even not Rebecca. She does what she thinks is the best. She makes her mistakes. God has to, in Jewish mind, she has to punish these mistakes. In our mind, she has to help her to convert, to see what was wrong, to see that she cannot put herself above God one way or another. The Bible doesn't actually wants to show her as villain, but there is a wrong she has done, and this wrong will have especially even more because she said, "Let the curse be upon me." So that words of her will cannot be without effect. Okay, words. That's what is very strong in Jewish mind. Words once said cannot be undone. We see that with the blessing which Isaac gives to Jacob. And Esau later on comes and cries, and he even doesn't ask that he undo the blessing because he knows that's impossible. Once the blessing is said, this blessing starts to take effect. You understand? It's once you shoot the bullet, that bullet is going to hit something. That's the that's the rule. So Esau doesn't come to Isaac and says, "Oh, take the bullet back." No, he knows this bullet is out. But he asks, "Do have some other blessings?" So this is very important notion of that the words once said are effective. They do have the action. They are actionable words. Okay.
Yes, consequences.
Yes, and the other consequences, but all actions have the consequences. So we will see that it will be beautiful to see how Jacob will be punished for his cheating his father and brother. He will be punished. He's still hero of the story. That's amazing. He's hero of the story. He inherits all God's blessing. He has the blessing of the father and so on. He's the hero of the story. He will be hero of the next story. But we are going to see that the bad thing which he does will come back on him. And we'll see that next week. Okay?